Yo, how's it? We are going to learn some Photoshop today. Making some creative shadow collages of our cool mugs. What we're going to do is take some pictures. You should have some pictures of things around your room or your house, that things that you like and that describes you. Here's some good examples. The key is to make sure there's a contrasting background. And we're going to be printing these A4. So let's go ahead and use International Paper A4. Resolution, that's the quality or the density of the pixels. And so we're going to use 300. And if this was only for web, we would do maybe 72. But 300, it's going to be a big file, but we're okay. We have lots of space. So here's our document size. Now let's go ahead and get our picture. You can resize the document on the bottom right, and here's our view screen. So you can go like 10%, 20%. You can also hold the option key and scroll in and out to move our base. You should have a side view picture like this. So let's go ahead and click and just drag that right into Photoshop here. And once we got our photograph, it's important that it's contrasting background. Okay, if it's not, you can go to Image, Adjustments, Exposure, and see how it's a little bit dark. I can increase the exposure so it's more contrasting, and so notice it's popping a little bit better now. So get it to a good spot so it's good contrasting. We're gonna hit OK. Photoshop is big on layers. Layers is basically different elements that you add into a composition to make your design or photograph. So what we're going to do is when you drag in a photo, it automatically locks it. Go ahead and double click that and just hit, instead of layer 1, we're going to call this the shadow. So I'm going to name that shadow and hit OK. So notice it changed the layer to shadow and now it's unlocked. Now what we're going to do is hold down on the Lasso Tool, L, and go to Magnetic Lasso. And what we're going to do is we're going to lasso the object all the way around. So it's automatically going to select the edge if you go slowly. So go slowly with the magnetic lasso around it. If you get stuck or if it's not picking up, or if you make a mistake like this, you can hit backspace or backspace and it will move out. You can also be scrolling in, or command plus and minus if you need to go in and out. And you can also, while you're doing it, you can force it. Notice here it's having a hard time choosing that. So what I can do is I can choose, go click, click, and I can force it like, there's his forehead. Now I'm going to drag it out. Hopefully it's picking it up. And again, if it doesn't pick it up nicely, you can hit backspace and then make it pick it up for it. So what you're going to do is just go around, and command minus is to go back, and I'm just going to make a little rough part. For the bottom, if you can't get it exact, that's okay. Just drag it really fast across, and it's okay if it's not a perfect line. And I'm just going to finish it off and make sure you complete it where you started. So notice this is where I started. You have to complete that, and there's a little circle that will pop up right by the lasso once you complete it, and then it will have like these blinking lines, which means I have my completed thing ready to go. So if I made a mistake like this, that's okay. I can fix that later, so no problem. So what I'm going to do is take that shadow, okay, and I'm going to fill it with a color. So what I'm going to do is hit edit, and I'm going to go fill, and then you're going to choose a color. So let's choose a color, and just go ahead and choose a color. It doesn't really matter, but make it a bright color, okay, because we're going to be filling all of those things in the color to what we need it to be. Okay, so now notice how we have some, we need to clean this up a little bit. We're going to use our edit mask. You're going to go down to the bottom left. It says edit quick mask or Q. So go ahead and click Q, and then we're going to be brushing this up a little bit. So what you're going to do is hit these two arrows. Right now it's black and white. We're going to switch those two now, white and black. What that's going to do is it's going to add to the selection. So if we kind of round that off a little bit, okay, to make it a little bit better. And now we unclick it. Notice that our selection now is rounded. Okay, so we're basically recorrecting our selection. Let's do that again. So go ahead and hit that. Make sure it's white on black. Let's say I corrected it too much. I can switch those two to black and white, and I can add more to it. So I can add here. And when we add and subtract, let's go hard brush. Okay, the hard brush, notice here, it's more definitive in your brush style, whereas when I'm soft, okay, it's more gradual. But we want a hard brush because we want to say exactly where that line is. It's going to be definitive. And if you want the size of the brush to be increased, you can. And you can use the left and right brackets to control that. So I'm just going to undo those examples. And so remember, black is to add, and then switch this is to subtract. So go in there and just brush up anything that looks a little bit odd for that. Again, that's the mask. This is called the mask mode. Okay, so alright, so it looks pretty good. So I'm going to take it out. Go ahead and hit Shift Command I, and it basically inverts the selection. Okay, so now everything around it is selected instead of this. So we're going to hit, before we hit delete, we're going to hit a new layer, and we're going to drag that layer below shadow and call this background. Okay. So now go back to shadow. And this is how it works for background. Right now there's nothing in background. Right now, if we go to shadow, we want to delete this white. So I'm going to hit delete. Now you should see it like a checkerboard. What that checkerboard is, it means it's transparent. It means it's nothing, which is good. So go ahead and hit Command Shift I again. And so now we inverted it back to our shadow collage. And let's go ahead and save that because we might need that selection for later. So go ahead and go to Select, Save Selection, and let's call that shadow. And hit OK. So now if we hit Command D, that's to deselect. Okay. So let's say, oh no, we need to change the color. We don't like this color. So no problem. Instead of going back and reselecting or retracing, you just go to Selection, Load Selection, and go in here and click Shadow and hit OK. And so there's our shadow. And let's go ahead and all change it. Let's go to Edit Fill. And everybody, let's change it, but let's go with a different shade of, let's go with purple, light purple, and hit OK. So let's have everybody use that color. Now hit Command D, we're done. There's our shadow collage. So we can zoom in, make sure everything looks good. If there's parts that you don't like, that didn't work well, you can use the eraser tool, hit E on the keyboard, eraser. Remember left bracket, right bracket. Can go up and down. Now we can choose the hardness level. Let's go hardness all the way so we can make definitive strokes. So we can come in here and make sure that this layer is selected, the shadow layer. So we can come in here and erase the parts that we want to and clean it up. Hit the space bar and you can move the mouse around and move it over. So you can just go ahead and clean up anything you need, otherwise we're good to go. Now what we want to do is we only want to use the shadow collage up to about here. I mean, we don't need all of this body. Okay, we want to focus more on the neck on up. So right about here is a good space, like right about there. So I'm going to select that, and again I'm using the selection tool. Okay, and if you use a space bar, you can move your selection around while you're holding down with your mouse and get exactly where you want. So right when you have it about where you need, go to Image, and we're going to go to, not Image, Shift Command I, and that selects everything around it. Okay, so Shift Command I, and you're going to hit delete. So Command Shift I, and so you're going to hit Command Shift I and then delete, and now we deleted it. Command D, hit V as in Victor, and now with the cursor we can move it around. So go ahead and take your shadow and drag it up to the other tab. Just hold down that tab, drag it in. You'll be pretty small, but that's okay. Command T will fix that. Transform. Hold on the Shift key. You want to hold on the Shift key so that you have to keep the ratio and proportions correct. If you don't, you might be too thin or might be too fat, so don't cheat yourself. Hold on the Shift key. Drag it down. Position it. Drag it down. It should go all the way to the bottom. And don't go all the way to the top. We're going to be adding text later for your name. So make sure you leave a little bit of room for your name, but not too much. We don't want a lot. So right about there looks pretty good. Hit enter and then it'll be very clear and you're ready for your images. So here's a picture that's more of a rectangle-ish type of thing. So I'm going to bring that into my Photoshop. And with this, I'm going to use a hold down and get rectangular marquee. And basically I'm just going to do a rectangle to where I want it to be. Now, if the picture is like it's crooked, like you weren't thinking right, and you didn't take a great picture, so it's crooked. What are you gonna do? Well, first of all, double click on the picture so it's not locked, and hit OK, and then hit Command T as in Tom, and then you can actually tilt the picture like this and correct it. And this is how you can correct your pictures if they're crooked. You can just do this and then hit Command D to deselect or enter, and then you can go up into the marquee here and you could see all the little white space. You don't want the white space anymore, so you can go in here, image, crop, and then it's cropped. So if you have a picture at home that you want to crop, you could do that, but fortunately we have a straight picture here, so we're just going to come in here. And you don't have to be exact, just get a brief rectangle area. I'm going to hit Command C and go into my shadow collage and hit Command V, and we placed it. You can hit Command T and you can make it bigger, smaller, and kind of arrange it where you want it to go. Later we're going to be cutting out everything that's outside of the purple area is going to get cut out. So you have to strategically design and where it would look best. Some colors look better next to each other, and you shouldn't put similar colors next to each other. It should be contrasting colors. But for right now, you can just place the objects in there. So I'm done with this. I'm going to hit Command W to close that, and I don't need to save that. Now, if you want to duplicate an item, hold down the Option key and hold down, and you can duplicate it. And if you want to invert the image, Command I, and it inverts the colors to the opposite. Isn't that cool? So we just did a rectangle. Let's go ahead and do a circle. So for the circle, I'm going to, again, if it's a little bit dark or light, whatever, you can go to Image Adjustments, Exposure, and you can bring up your exposure to where you want it to be. But I'm going to go ahead and hold down and hit circle, and I'm going to hold down the circle. And actually, as you do a circle, this is very challenging, by the way, so you better listen up. Hold down the space bar and notice I can move my circle. Okay, so I can move it right about here, and then I can let go of the space bar and then move it right on out. Okay, I can also notice this is an oval and this is not. If I want a completely straight circle, I can hold down the Shift key, and then it forces me to make a complete circle. And then I can hold down the Shift and space bar and move it at the same time. So experiment. I know it's a lot to handle, a lot of information, but just check it out. So here I'm having a hard time making that complete circle, so I'm gonna let go of the Shift key a little bit and make it a little bit about like that. And actually I think it looks better if I cut it off. So again, make the circle exactly where you want, and make sure you experiment with this tool to make it exactly where you want it to be. Okay, so I have this ready. So I'm going to hit V as in Victor. And again, you can use the space bars to move it around. And I'm going to hit Command C and go in here, Command V and Command T to transform, and kind of place it where I want it to be right now. But I'm not sure, so I'll come back to that later. I'm done with that. I'm going to hit Command W to close it. Don't need to have that. But make sure your project is saved. So make sure you save it as, you can save it as your class ID, shadow collage, because you definitely don't want to lose it if your computer shuts down. Next, let's go ahead and do Choose something from your photographs that is very clearly definitive, light and dark. What I'm going to do is do the rectangle, and notice I've selected it. Now if I go to the magic wand, okay, hold down, go to magic wand, and now if I hold on the option key, I can subtract that space. I'm going to subtract this space, subtract that space, keep subtracting it, okay, and notice I'm pretty good now. So I have it all selected, okay. So once you have it the way you want it, hit Command C, and then go here and Command V, and I can transform it, make it bigger, and we'll move it later where we want. Command W to close that. Next, choose a picture that has the same color throughout the whole image. And what I'm going to do is have the magic wand W and make sure it's magic wand, or you could try quick selection if you're feeling good. But we're basically going to select one of the colors. Now it's going to select all the colors that is similar to that image. Now there is something called tolerance. If I go here and put 111, and go ahead and try it because you should learn how this works. Notice how I just clicked it and it kind of selected a little bit better, but also notice it wasn't too exact. Notice here it has a little bit of around it. Now if I go in here and put 11 and hit the tolerance, notice it only did that shade, so it's more exact. The tolerance is more exact to what you exactly want, but we're not really picky right now, so we're just going to choose 111, and notice how it's a little bit too much. So what we can do is minus it. Now notice that was too much when we minus it. When you minus, basically that's holding down the option key like we just learned and subtracting it. So let's hit Command D, deselect, and let's go back and let's try 44, and let's go ahead and select it. So we got most of it. That's pretty good. Hold on the Shift key and with the magic wand, and we can add to the selection right there. If you want to add the eyes, we can hold on and click the eyes, and we've just added those. Or at least the whites of the eyes. Notice if I move it, it's kind of scary, but we don't have the blacks of the eyes. So I'm going to hit the, so let's keep adding the eyes with it. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and add the eyes as a click, and then I'm going to Command C and go into my shadow collage and Command V, and now we have our nice little heart guy there that we can use. I'm going to next show you guys how to use the pen tool, or the let's go Lasso Tool. We're going to use the Lasso Tool. I'm going to show you guys for the Lasso Tool you can draw exactly how you want it to be, and there's no magnetic lasso. It's all the flick of your wrist. If you make a mistake, you can always go back later and clean it up with the eraser tool like we learned in the shadow collage. But once you got it to where you want it to be, make sure you close it to the exact spot that you started with. Remember, you can go to the quick mask and you can go ahead and paint. Go to the brush, okay, and then this is adding to the selection. So notice I don't want to add to the selection. I want to click these arrows so it's black and white first. And notice I can come in here and clean it up a little bit better. Here I can clean it up. So go ahead and clean up your image if you made any mistakes. And now if I go quick mask, notice that that selection is now cleaned up as well. So Command C, go to shadow collage, Command V, and then hit V and you can move it. Command T to transform. And notice you can transform from the angles as well, and you can move it around different sides. Now what we have is a lot of our layers in our shadow collage. We need to go back and name these layers so we can be organized. It's very important to be organized with our layers in Photoshop. So if you click on the eye, that's to hide or unhide something. So that's our bottle, right? So we're going to call that Arizona. That's our Arizona bottle. One is the heart, and it kind of shows you what it is. This is our camera. So we're going to double click layer 3 and call that camera. And this is our fish, and this is our toms. Okay. Now notice you have to have that layer selected, and it only selects that one. Let's go ahead and click our shadow collage, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a selection. Hit W for Magic Wand, and let's go ahead and click on your shadow collage, and it should be highlighted only your shadow collage. What you're going to do is go to Selection, and we're going to say Save Selection, and we're going to call this New Shadow. That's our new shadow collage. Now what we're going to do is each one of these objects, remember we're going to hit Command D, and we're going to be arranging our objects now the way you want it to be according to your idea and creativity and all that stuff. Some people like to be creative, like different types of food they'll put it by their mouth, or if they have sunglasses they'll put it by their eyes, or if their favorite necklace they'll actually put around them to show their bling. So be creative. This is where I get to see your creativity really come out. I'm going to put the heart over here. But you need to arrange, and none of this purple can be showing. So for the Arizona bottle, make sure you guys don't cut off key parts that you want to show. So for this camera, and by the way, if you hit Control and click on the object, you can select that layer instead of going to that layer each time. So I'm going to put this camera by the eye because I like that the way that is. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger and move it up where the eye would go. Okay. Now what's going to happen is we're going to cut out this part, everything that's outside of that line. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the selection, load selection, and choose New Shadow and hit OK. And so now everything is selected. Make sure your camera layer is selected, and then you're going to hit Command Shift I to invert the selection to select everything outside that shadow, and then hit the delete button. And notice that it deleted. And hit Command D. You would then go ahead and do the rest of your objects the way you want according to that. Again, once you delete it though, it's kind of gone. Okay, so if you're paranoid, you don't want to make a mistake. What you can do is on camera layer, you could just click that layer and drag it to new layer, and notice it made a copy, and then you can just hide that copy. So that way you can do whatever you want to this one, and if you make a mistake, you always have this backup copy to go. But you don't have to do a backup copy. Just do it in case you really think you're going to make a mistake. So go ahead and make your arrangements the way you want to. But be creative and make sure you don't see any of the background color, and place objects where they should be. When you're done, and I'm just going to, if you can hold down the mouse, and I can just drag it right down to hide all of my objects, but I'm just going to show you how we can add the color to the background now. So you get to choose the background of your choice, and choose a background that goes well, with your object. So in this case, I wouldn't want to use a red background because red is a dominant color here. Also pink, yellow. So I think a blue would look nice. There's not much too much blue. It's just in the middle, which is fine as long as it's not on the edges. So I'm going to go to my background, and if it's locked, you can double click it, hit OK, and name that background. And now we're going to fill that background by going Edit, Fill, and then choose our background color. So color, and I'm going to choose maybe a blue because I like blue. Alright, so notice our blue background is right here. Now I'm going to show you how to put our text. For your text, you hit T for text, and then you just click anywhere up here, and it should be here, and then you're going to put your first and last name. So let's say your name is, just say it's Mark Heil. You are going to be placing your text right here, and Command T is to transform, and you can hold on the Shift key to make that bigger, and then hit Enter. And notice how that text is right here for a later. If you make a mistake, let's say you're not Mark Heil, you can hit T for text on the keyboard, and then go ahead and click on and make sure that layer is selected, and go in here, and let's say your name is Joe Yi. And then I can click here, and then we're done with that. Now, for the T for text, go ahead and you can choose the font of your choice. That looks funny, good, and creative, so I'm going to use that. Command T, make that a little bit bigger, and then hit enter. And then what you can also do is in your layers, you should have a layers palette called character and paragraph. So you'll see it says 25 right here. This is actually called the kerning. And you can drag that up and down, and basically that'll increase or decrease the size between the fonts. So I'm going to go actually negative so it brings it in a little bit more. Again, I can even enter it more like 150, enter. And that's more or less what I want to do. Okay. You can also stretch it if you want. So I could go 150% instead, and it stretches it. If you want to do that, well, I'll just choose 111. And hit the V for Victor, and now you can move it around. And you can actually hit Command T to transform it, and I'm going to move it up a little bit and to fit in here. And I think I have it the way I want. You can also change the color. So to use your color, you can click on here and choose a contrasting color. So notice I have this blue. I want to choose a contrasting color that looks pretty good. Contrast. Let's see, maybe a dark blue. There you go. And then I'm also going to add a shadow. So in your layers, you'll see function, F of X. You can actually hit drop shadow, and your drop shadow palette will come up, and you'll have some drop shadow options that you can play with. But don't play too much because we don't want to get crazy. But just go with something good, hit OK. And if you also want to add a stroke, that's up to you as well. Sometimes a white stroke looks nice, but in this lettering it doesn't. It makes it look too thin. Unless I bring down my size maybe to 1, that looks okay. So I can also add bevel and emboss. It makes it look like a 3D-ish type of thing. And so those are the 3 things I'd recommend playing around with and checking into. But again, make sure it's legible and it's easy to read and it looks nice. Make sure your text isn't too close to this edge and too much spacing, or it's kind of weird area. Put it in a spot where you think it'll look good. So that's how you make a shadow collage. Hopefully you had fun with that and learning Photoshop. I'm out.